Hey.
Hello,
Hi,
how's it
Tenille.
going?
Good, how are you?
Good, Melody. So wonderful to
Good.
talk to you today. Thanks for
It's
taking the time.
well, thank you for taking the time. You're the busy one. You have had an exceptionally busy year.
Hmm. Thanks.
Yeah,
Oh,
so I mean, the rest of us during this pandemic year have had nothing going on. You have been winning awards left and right for the lemonade stand. So we got 3 awards at the Canadian Country Music Awards, right? Including Female Artist of the Year. You got new Female Artist of the Year at the Academy of Country Music Awards, and then Country Album of the Year at the Junos.
craziness.
I
Just crazy. It's so wild to hear you say all that. I mean, it's really cool.
It's got to be wild to live it, but I've got to wonder, like, with all of it being virtual, all of it being so different, do you kind of feel like you missed out on any of what the experiences should have been like to
I mean,
accomplish all that?
it definitely looked a lot different than you kind of imagine those sort of experiences and moments looking like. But I think that that's something as an entire just world we are all going through this year together and learning about how to still make things work through the distance and how
Hmm.
to, still find ways to come together and be there to lift each other up. So I think that those moments this year just have fallen right in along with that story for me, and I'm grateful I'll get to remember them that way, you know?
Yeah, that's true. And Zoom has been a big part of how we connect. I saw on Instagram you wrote 150 songs this year over Zoom mostly.
Phew, I mean, I feel like writing songs has been my way of honestly staying sane this year. Being able to, disappear into the creative process is something I'm really grateful for because I was really kind of going crazy not being on the road and missing it so much, and so much uncertainty and anxiety and isolation and change that the whole world's been feeling, and it's like being able to pick up my guitar and have that safe place has been something I'm so grateful for. So I'm like really excited to start sharing some of those new songs very soon.
Yeah, so you got a new album coming out.
Yes,
And this is,
eventually.
well, eventually, this is your pandemic album, right?
Yeah. This is true, it is.
So, with the way the world's looked the last year and needing that creative outlet, how has all of this influenced what this album's going to sound like when it comes out?
I think for me, writing and music in general is like a way to process and understand what's going on in the world and in myself. And I think this year, my favorite place to write from is the observer perspective,
Hmm.
kind of looking at the world from the window. But I do think this year has kind of forced me in a way to spend more time sort of thinking about my own thoughts and feelings. And I think these songs are coming out maybe a little bit more personal this time. So I would say that's been a part of that process. And the first song that we get to put out is one that came from partly from walking around my neighborhood. I feel like walking is something that's been so therapeutic this past year, and I've been looking at different like sidewalk chalk art from neighborhood kids and hearing them playing in the backyard, and just really thinking about the kind of courage that the younger versions of all of us had, the way that we just really didn't care what anybody else, said or thought, and were just not afraid of any crazy dream that was somewhere far away. And I would not be here, doing the thing that I love to do if it wasn't for the courage of the 7-year-old kid that I was singing along to Shania Twain songs at the top of my lungs, dreaming about this. So the song's called "Girl Who Didn't Care," and I really
Hmm.
am just so excited to get to share it.
It's it's a great song. I even talking about it, I knew this was going to happen. That as soon as I started talking to you about it, I would get really emotional because it reminded me of. I might cry on this interview, Tenille. I'm sorry.
I
It
want to
reminded
hug
me of my
you.
daughter. I want to hug you too. But it did. It reminded me of my daughter. She's 2, and she's just such a free spirit and a quirky little, just a spark. And I just thought about how you just want that forever. Like, I hope you never
Yes,
lose that. And that's what I thought of
yes.
during that song. And
Ah, that is so special. It means so much to me to hear you say that.
well, that's just the best part of your music, though. I feel like as listeners, your music articulates our thoughts and feelings that we maybe didn't even know we had, and then you
Hmm.
express it, and we think, oh my God, yeah, like I get it. But also your music. it straddles genres. I don't have the right musical knowledge to express what I'm trying to say, but I feel like I could hear the girl who didn't care, and I could hear that on a country station. I could hear it on a
Mhm.
pop station. I could hear it on
Awesome.
lots of like. What is your influence musically? Who or what has made the sound that is Tenille Townes? Because
Hmm.
it just defies genres.
Oh, I love hearing that. And I've always really thought about music just being music, and it's stories and it's a collection of our human experience and whatever that comes out sounding like. I love the storytelling aspect specifically of country music, and that was definitely a part of what I grew up listening to, but it was a mixture of a bunch of things. I mean, when I was driving with my mom singing along in the back seat, it was a lot of Shania Twain.
Of course.
When I was, with my dad, it was maybe a little bit more rock and roll, some, Joshua Tree, U2, we listened to a bunch, and Fleetwood Mac, and driving around with my grandparents, it was like Elvis and Dolly Parton. And so I feel like it's kind of a combination of all kinds of different things, but it really means a lot to hear you say that.
Now, you're in Nashville now. That's where you live now, but you're an Alberta
Yes,
girl,
I am. Yes.
Grand Prairie.
Grand
I always love
Prairie.
talking to Canadians because, you talk about these places and you talk about these experiences, and we can relate to them as Canadians because I know what you're talking about. You talk about somewhere in the States, I'm like, I don't know where that is, whatever. But Grand Prairie, we can relate to that. And you had a
Yes.
program that crossed the country when you were just a teen yourself, right? The Play It Forward program.
Yeah, thanks for saying that.
There'd be people listening right now that would remember you coming to their high school or their middle school and performing there. And the whole thing was, just in case the listeners aren't familiar with it, was to encourage leadership and inspire young people. But I want to know, was there any sort of interaction or story from that time, from the youth across Canada, that still really sticks out to you in
Oh,
your, yeah?
absolutely. There were so many. I met the most incredible kids on that tour, and it was my way of getting to wake up and play music every day and be inspired by the stories that I was hearing of what these students were doing in their hallways. And from one side of the country to the other, I have like those stories like that I absolutely carry with me. I still remember the looks on those kids' faces. There was one group in Grand Manan, New Brunswick that I met that had been through a really hard car accident with a few kids from their high school, and one of them, her name was Danielle. She's the star basketball player, and she just graduated as a valedictorian and was taken in this fluke wreck. And I saw her jersey hanging in memory on the wall in that school gym, and thought about the questions that I have for God. And I left from that trip and stayed in touch with that community. And Jersey on the Wall was very much inspired by my time at that school. So
Oh, wow.
I yeah, I feel like I've really that community in particular definitely I carry with me.
Oh, Grand Manan, it's a hidden gem that a lot of
It is.
Atlantic Canadians don't know about. One of my favorite campsites is there, a hole in the wall.
Oh, that's amazing. I love
But
that.
and I
Yeah,
love that
Grand Manan is
story.
very special.
Yeah. So you're on tour again with Brothers Osborne
Yes,
now.
I'm so excited.
Can we expect any Canadian dates at any
I
point, maybe?
am crossing all my fingers that later this year it works out to get to come home and play. I cannot wait to come back to Canada and see everybody and hug everyone. I'm just really looking forward to it. So hoping that everything can logistically work out for us. We'll be there as soon as we possibly can.
Well, we're hoping so too. We would love to have you here, and so excited about the new song, Tenille Townes, The Girl Who Didn't Care, on Hot Country 103.5.